Hello, everyone, and welcome to Radio 5G. This is Michael Henry Dunn, here with my co-host Nancy Hopkins on Radio 5G, a joint project of the Sacred Academy of Global Evolution and Cosmic Reality Radio. So today's program, we are looking forward to focusing on the major step reported by a major telecom company in Australia that they are halting the rollout of 5G due to health concerns. And then there's the mainstream media response on that, largely dismissive, of course. And we've got some interesting news and material to share with you on that. But before we get to that, Nancy has shared with me this morning already some disturbing news about health effects that some of our allies and friends at Radio 5G are experiencing. So, Nancy, could you give us a little bit of background on what you see going on this morning?
Well, I don't really want to name people because I think that probably there's an awful lot of people out there that are in exactly the same state. When Michael and I started this Radio 5G, we tried to keep within the orthodox science, but obviously we were put here to give the metaphysical message. And the metaphysical message from today is that we are experiencing extremely what we would call dense energy. It's the best way to explain it is like you're in deep water, and as you go deeper and deeper, the pressure gets more. Now, that's, let's say, light energy coming in, but it's coming in at a very high frequency. And many of us were sent here to be what I call is a transformer, transducer. It's taking the energy from the higher echelons and taking it through our 3D body to step it down so it's acceptable by the 3D grid system, the biosphere of Earth. I'm not having a problem with it, and I'm definitely one of these people, because whatever's happening is happening. You know, I get some weird thing happening, I look at it, but I don't have a fear for it because I live in the world of energies, and they change all the time. So when I got 2 calls this morning, I mean, it was like, and these are serious health problems. But if you're not feeling like you're yourself and you're feeling a little off, give up control, relax. All right, because what's happening is that this is apparently fundamentally a energy that we haven't really brought. Well, it all is you're always bringing in new energy, but this one is particularly dense. So as it comes into the 3D, it is causing the 3D to have a bad reaction if you begin to get your heads into it. Get your heads out of it. Yes, your body's going to have a few bumps, and don't worry about it. Everything is in control. They're not going to kill their transformers or transducers or whatever we want to call them. They're just, they've got, you were here to do this. Just relax. Give up control, because you're not alone. It's a network. Okay, so if the energy starts to get too much for you, you feel like you're really off, then just think of the network taking more of it away from you. Because some of us out here are very, very strong and able to do this. You guys have been beat up a lot. Okay, so just let the system work, the network work of light workers. And if the energy is getting too much for you, you're starting to get fearful, just give it over to us, the rest of us. All right, we're here. And I'm not just talking about me as a 3D person. I'm talking about all of the etheric guides and spirits and nature beings, everybody who is really in the family of not just man, but the family of Earth. Okay, and it's many, many layers. You're absolutely safe. Okay, just relax. Give up the control and kind of get into it. Let the energy come through you. Don't fight it. And don't let your heads get into it. Just say, Nancy says it's going to be all right, and there's a network, and I'm just going to, if it's too much for me, it's going to go through the network, and Nancy's going to take care of it. Don't worry. All right, so please just relax, give up control. We're never in control anyway. The only time you get control is when you give it up. Just give up the control, relax, and just let the energy flow. Okay? It's a network, and it's all over the world, and much beyond the world. But anyway, Michael, that's the message.
Yeah, I hear you. It's let go and let God, as they say in the Friends of Bill. And that is that can be pretty tricky, to do that when you're experiencing these kind of effects, when your health is being affected, and of course your peace of mind along with it. It's but it is kind of just an inner click kind of thing where you just say, okay, I can let go of this. And most of the folks listening to us today have gotten good at that surrender trigger button, call it whatever you want, that if you've developed a trust in a higher power and you've developed a familiarity, you might say an intimacy with higher power, then you have probably gotten some practice at, in these really challenging moments of actually putting let go and let God into practice. And it doesn't mean, that we are giving up our responsibility here on the ground to do our boots on the ground, the footwork that so many of us do every day, to combine these metaphysical methods, inner methods, with the 3D on the ground action, civic action, legal action, political action to stop the rollout of 5G and to protect our biosphere, our children, our homes. It's this combination, and at a time like this that you're describing, Nancy, it just sounds like we need to remember that there is a network. Here in Crestone, among our community, we refer to it as the Inner Light Network, which, is a counterbalance, you might say, to what we'll call the dark faction, which goes by all kinds of names. People like to mythologize it and turn it into this big fear-mongering monolithic entity, whether they're calling it the Cabal or the Illuminati or, the Committee of 300 or the Bilderbergs. Any of that, that plays into the fear scenario when we do that. Nevertheless, it is true that we'll just call them the dark faction, does have their agents infiltrated into various high-level positions in telecommunications, military, industrial, fossil fuel industries, agribusiness, big pharma, etc. That we can see it every day. They don't have to be the members of some dark cult to be operating according to agendas of greed, domination, and a slow erosion of human rights. We see that happening. And we need to stop and breathe and remember that there is what we call the Inner Light Network, also infiltrated into all those same fields and industries. The good guys, the good women, the good men, and also on the higher planes, as Nancy's reminding us, the devas and the spirits and the upper, what we'll call upper astral energy. These are realities. This isn't just, new age falderall that Stephen Colbert can make fun of in a 30-second, gag on late night. These are demonstrated realities that people who have done deep research into metaphysics, using the scientific method and also validating our own inner experience, that we know is real. And so there is, in fact, a network that we can turn to and rely on, and it becomes much easier to do that if we have our own spiritual practice of some kind of meditative practice, that even if it's a few minutes every day, and then throughout the day, turning to the help of that source, asking for that help when we need it, and remembering that we're not alone, that there is this beautiful network of friends on a higher level of friendship. We may not see them or speak to them, but we are part of the same brother-sisterhood, the same family, that simply is here to do our part to promote the healing of the planet, the restoration of human freedom, and upholding the rule of law, by which I mean, when I say that, I mean the divine law as expressed in the Golden Rule, which is the foundation of meaningful higher law throughout the world, whether it's back to the Code of Hammurabi or Julius Caesar or Magna Carta, that this needs to be upheld and enforced by the human family. And we need to stand up and say, no, this is not acceptable. This, the elite pedophilia rings and the abduction and torture and murder of children is not acceptable. No, the exploitation and rape of this planet is not acceptable. No, the fomentation of war to divide the human family is not acceptable. The tribalization and divisiveness that we see, paraded and encouraged every day, setting religion against religion, race against race, gender against gender, sexual preference against sexual preference, all of it over and over again, designed to keep us divided and to keep us from recognizing that there's a guy behind the curtain in the little booth operating the big, scary, Wizard of Oz paraphernalia. And, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. Well, the curtain's been pulled back and the man is naked and revealed and he's scared about it. That's what's really going on. That's my speech for the morning. There is an inner light network. As Nancy says, let's breathe and tune into it and trust that things are going to be okay. You there with me, Nancy?
I am. I just couldn't get to the mute button. Yes, and I'm delivering this message, but it was under, advice from true psychic healers. I'm not a psychic healer. But when these people called me, I called them, and then, it was a group, it was a team working to try to figure out what is happening. So I'm like the voice of the team, but it's all, and I'm talking about 3D people, not just the etheric beings, and what you have to believe in is that you're not alone. You've never been alone. It seems that way because you had to take the walk to get yourself to a point where you are your authentic self. But, and in doing that, we tend to take so much on ourselves. We're trying to save the world, so we're bringing in all of this really powerful karma. We kind of like accept the karma, the gunk that is there. It's not ours. Let it go. Maybe that's the key to me, that I don't respond so much at a 3D level with. It's like, because I don't take the karma on. I don't believe it's mine. All right, you got to let go of it. All of the emotion when you see anything that, from children to animals, all of the bad that you see, that you inevitably take on, trying to clear it. Okay? Let it go. It's not yours. It may be ours, but it's not individually yours. So we have to work together because, a ton of lumber is real heavy unless you got 100 people picking it up. So that's what we got to think of, is that you're not alone. And we can't do everything. Let go of all the karma that, karma doesn't exist. It's a BS thing they put in our head. Clear yourself of the energies. You all can clear yourself of the energies. Just see it going back to source. All the negative, source can handle it. Just clean me out. Get me fresh. Get me strong again. Let me take these new energies in, transmute them down so that the world can accept it, and be prepared for a massive change in the collective consciousness of humanity. Because we've got the framework in our brain system already. In the collective consciousness, in our subconsciousness, we know we're all right. We know that all of the trials and tribulations are just stories about how we finally woke up, saw the problems, and then fixed the problems. And we're living the story. But in that story, let's have a theme of team. A theme that we're never alone. We're always being guided, we're always being helped. And that we only are responsible for our own reactions and responses within our own given bubble of the universe. And if each of those bubbles gets real strong, then the framework and the structure of what we're building here becomes more and more viable and will make more and more drastic and radical changes, taking away the dark into the light. But to do that, you have to be willing to absolutely relax and give over all the karma that you've been collecting. We all do it. I mean, I don't do it anymore. Well, maybe a little bit. We're always doing some of it. You have to continually, it's not mine. I can understand the problem, but it's not my karma. It's not my energy. But I will accept it. It is the human being's energy. We've got to clear up our own family. So it's not like we're walking away from seeing the dark side. Oh, I don't have to worry about it. It's going to be etherically taken care of. The angels are going to come. No, you have to understand it. But you don't have to take on the karma, the energy of it. Just, that's what that is. Okay, well, how do we clear it? And when you're talking and you're thinking about a team, okay, trust me, those thoughts are being picked up by the rest of the team. So think in terms of team, of, a very coherent and working together individuals for one goal, the advancement of human beings. Because if human beings can make this one little last jump into awareness and into love and into who they are. And if you don't understand what I'm saying, sit there and just think of love, think of joy. Sit there and lay down and just say joy, love, joy, love, joy. Start a mantra. Now, I have done some of these mantras for virtually 8 hours at a time, not knowing why this energy had to be put out there. But somebody had to understand we have to have more love and joy. Okay, all right, love, joy, love, joy, love, joy. And I'm telling you, you'd think of it as wasting 8 hours. You're laying there and that's all you're doing. But that's what they asked me to do. And that's not a big, thing to do for any of us. If you're in trouble and you're kind of feeling bad, just go into the mantra of love, joy, love, joy, love, joy, love, joy. I hope that helps.
Yeah, and that's an ancient practice in a number of different religions. In Christianity, it comes out of the gospel, and where Jesus says, actually, it's St. Paul says, to pray without ceasing. Well, to pray without ceasing is about keeping, a mantra going in your consciousness, a flow of attunement with the peace that is actually our true soul nature. In India, they call it japam. It's the ceaseless repetition of the divine name. In Russia, it's the Pilgrim's Prayer, and that wonderful book that probably a lot of folks are familiar with about the pilgrim who, wanders through Russia learning how to pray without ceasing. And it's to say in that case, it's a Christian prayer. It's Jesus Christ, have mercy on us. Repeating it thousands of times a day. And for all of us, of course, we've got our jobs, we've got debts, we've got family problems, we've got, pressures, we've got traffic, we've got, taking care of the kids, all the rest of it. It's well, great. I love your mantra idea. Just, how do you pull that off, given the pressures of life, in 2019? And it's a really simple, it can be a really simple practice. When you talk about meditation in the context of what you're describing, Nancy, there's a very simple way, to find a quiet moment, find a quiet space, and, it helps to sit with your back straight, with the spine erect. It helps to lift your eyes, the gaze to the point between the eyebrows, which, is recognized in many traditions. That's the spiritual eye, the Christ Consciousness Center, the Kudasa Chaitanya, call it what you will. But when you look there and then you calm the breath and say you're doing what Nancy is suggesting here, love and joy, just watch your breath. Don't try to control it. On the inhalation, allow yourself to calmly, silently repeat joy. Then just wait. Don't control the breath. Let it stay in as long as it wants to. When it's time for exhalation, love, joy. Love in the inhalation, joy in the exhalation, or whatever phrase touches your heart or resonates for you, a name of the divine. And see, concentrate on that for like 5 or 10 minutes. Enjoy the peace of, that comes between breaths when you realize, hey, I'm not this monkey mind with the thoughts jumping all around and the fears and anxieties. Those thoughts will come up while you're meditating. You recognize them. You don't fight them. You let them go. And you return to concentrating on the mantra. And after a while, the thoughts start to slow down. The breath starts to slow down in a very peaceful way. The heart rate starts to slow down, and you experience pure consciousness, the peace of the soul, of, our actual nature. And 10 minutes of that can be so deeply refreshing to our spirits and our hearts and minds. And then when it's time to get up, from your seat, just do your best to keep that flow going of joy and love, just this silent river of communion with those divine realities. And then you're in traffic and you're late for work and your boss is ticked off and your kid's in trouble at school or whatever. It's not going to mean that the world is all a bed of roses, but we can deal with it from a place of serenity as opposed to, from a place of anxiety and deep unease. So, it's a beautiful and important practice.
Well, actually, regarding that, my feeling is that none of us have all the time to do this kind of meditative type of work. What I suggest is that you'd make it just a response to everything that's happening around you. Every time something's happening, even if it's a good thing, just go love and joy, love and joy. You don't have to get into any kind of a state, because those frequencies of love and joy are frequencies that will already, just by the frequency, go out in a way that will make you feel better, and it'll make everybody around you feel better. So it should be not just I'm going to meditate and I'm going to get into this state, because I think that you can actually maintain the state of meditation. That's what I've been trying to tell people, is that I don't go into a state of meditation unless I'm doing one of these big things where they want me down and out and focused on some very important thing, which I never ever know what it is. But I'm willing to play, tell me what you want me to do. You want me to do that? I'll do that. Fine. But on a daily basis, you should become a meditative person. Okay, and the difference between praying and meditation is praying is asking God for something, and meditation is listening for direction from God. So if you're willing to just say, okay, I don't have any real control here unless I give up control and work with my team that is working with the God source itself. And if you get into that kind of a thing, then whatever happens, love, joy, and boom, you're going to be right back into the love, joy thing. Okay, now what were you saying? That type of thing. That it's much more powerful than we've been led to believe. It's frequency. The number one thing that can change the DNA in a human being is the vocal cords. A word, thought. What people say out of their mouths is extremely powerful because it's a frequency, it's energy. But the very thought is an energy frequency. Joy, love, joy, love, joy, love. And it doesn't have to be those two terms. I just know that those two terms work for me. And, so don't think you have to. The meditative state is awesome, but you can take that state and put it inside of yourself so that it's kind of walking with you all the time. Your left brain is dealing with a 3D, but your right brain is in a meditative state, willing to listen to your inner self, to listen to your higher self, to listen to the God source itself, because sometimes you'll get that direction. You are not alone. Just realize you're part of a team. And joy, love, every chance you get.
Amen to that. It makes me think of in the Harry Potter movies, particularly the final movie, where Harry goes into the Dark Forest to face Voldemort, and he's specifically going in there with the intention of sacrificing himself. Because, people who know the story, he is actually carrying a Horcrux, which is one of the things that's keeping Voldemort alive. And if they're going to, save humanity and kill Voldemort, well, they've got to kill the Horcrux, which happens to be in Harry. So Harry's going, okay, I'm going in. And as he goes into the Dark Forest, he uses one of the Deathly Hallows, which is the Resurrection Stone. And suddenly, he looks around in this Dark Forest, and there is his mother. There's his father. There is his beloved godfather Sirius. There is what's named Lupus and his wife, who were just killed in the battle, and they're all shimmering, and they're standing around him, with him, in this moment of supreme trial and challenge, where he is willing to sacrifice his life to save his friends and to help humanity. And he looks around at them and he says, "Why are you here?" And his mother says to him, "We never left. We've always been there. We're always with you. We're here, you see." And she touches her heart. So it just, and that's the truth that we're talking about. I've been blessed enough in my life to experience this as a tangible reality. I mean, not quite in the way of Harry Potter in the Dark Forest, suddenly, seeing these beloved souls, visually with him. But I can simply attest from my own experience that this is a reality, and that if we tune into it, it's a tangible reality that is undeniable. You don't need to defend it in court or defend it on some radio show. It's between you and God, and you will know the tangible reality of it. But you don't need to defend to anyone, because it's a sacred, intimate communion. You are not alone, and we are not alone in this transformational time. So I'm really, it's difficult that this conversation, this topic has been brought up today because of some of the serious health challenges that some of our friends are going through right now. But I'm glad that we're talking about this because we can share with everyone, and because the difficulties that our friends are going through are, I think you were touching on this, Nancy, are difficulties that are really the result of people who are here on a specific mission and task of, transducing high-level energies to a 3D level where they can be useful and accessible to all of us. And when really high energies are coming in for whatever reason, from whatever source, it can throw you off. It can, take you down physically for a day or two. So
let me just say something about that, because this goes back to the ages. As we're moving through the galaxy, we talk in terms of ages. Ages really define a specific area of energy. As we move through the galaxy, there's different energy levels. In the case we're in now, there's a tremendous amount of dust, basically dust, and it's mostly carbon. So that fuels everything. It fuels the sun to get hotter. That's why we have the hotter sun. But the idea of the ages is one that has a whole esoteric concept behind it, that for every age you have a Kohan. And in the last age, Jesus was the Kohan of the golden ray. Now, the golden ray was something that a human being could actually, in the human form, accept that energy. Okay, because it's a specific type of energy that can be just absorbed into a human being. And that's why Jesus incarnated into the earth plane, to be able to draw in that golden ray and then himself, step it down so that it was accepted. All right. Now, in the age we're in now, the Kohan of this specific age is Saint Germain, and it's the purple ray. The purple ray is so powerful that a human body could not possibly take it in and do anything with it, because we don't have the 3D body doesn't have the ability to really work with the purple ray as a direct ray. So Saint Germain has remained on the other side, and what happens is that he's taken the first step down of the purple ray, that then he transfers to his people on the ground, okay? You, me, the others that are here. And so we're getting hit with the purple ray, and I suspect that this is why people are feeling it so densely. And what it is that it's got to go through a human being, but it's already been stepped down by Saint Germain. So in the very least, you are part of a system that is working to get a new set of energies in place in the earth plane. So this has a long history. This is esoteric thought. It goes beyond, most any other, kind of philosophical, esoteric even. This I am so convinced of is the way that what's happening right now. And this was shown to me 40 years ago. How this all works from esoteric teaching. So, like I say, we're just in the purple ray, okay? And you're going to be so happy once it gets adjusted, It's the ray of manifestation, of magic, of, reaching our full potential. So embrace it. Don't be afraid of it.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me to hear you bring in Saint Germain. For those of our listeners out there who might be only glancingly familiar, the Count of Saint Germain is a documented historical figure from the 18th century, a very legendary figure, particularly in France and England at the time, who appeared to have mastered the secrets of immortality. appeared to have a mysterious source of wealth that was inexhaustible, ate only very, very refined foods that he would prepare himself. He was a vegetarian. And he appeared to be immortal. I mean, there was a grandfather in France who said to his grandson, "You see that man at the end of the table? That's the Count de Saint-Germain. He looked exactly like he does now, namely about 35 years of age, when I first met him when I was 6 years old." So, and, there's documents and letters, people like, Voltaire and members of the French court at the time, that he was even intimately involved in the American Revolution and in the, suddenly this figure that was referred to as the professor shows up in 1776 in Philadelphia as the Declaration was being created and voted on. So he's this, combination of a semi-legendary figure who was an absolute historical fact. And then he supposedly died, but then people reported encounters with him after his supposed death. So, here we have this combination of this mystical figure. And he's not a saint in terms of being a Catholic saint or any other kind of saint. Obviously a great soul. You could call him a saint if you wanted. He's known as Saint Germain because he was the Count of the region of Saint Germain. That's a place name changed into a proper name with a nobility title, the Count de Saint Germain. But I personally know people today here in the 21st century, credible people whom I respect, who have had encounters with Saint Germain. And so there is some reality going on here. Make of it what you will. Google it, check out. There's various sites that put all this information together. But there is the violet ray. There are those who work with it. It is a powerful healing reality. And it may well be that there's a big influx of it coming in right now, and it's hitting some of us kind of hard, but all will be well, is basically the message.
Yes, so now we can go on to 5G.
Right, yeah.
Well, listen, what time is it? Okay, we've got time for this. I've got the former president of Microsoft Canada, his tape. It's a 10-minute or 11-minute tape that it just came out like last week. Okay, I don't know the history of how it got out there because the guy, when he retired or left Microsoft in 2013, I think, he began to vocally talk against 4G and about what was happening. And now, I mean, can you imagine 2013? But now, for the first time, I'm hearing his voice, and others are because I'm sharing it all over the place. But why don't we listen to this? Let Frank Clegg, his name is Frank Clegg, tell his story and sort of get us back in the mindset of 5G. Would that work for us?
Yeah, that's great. I'd love to hear it. I haven't had a chance to hear it yet myself.
Okay, so here we go.
Hello, my name is Frank Clegg, and I've spent over 40 years in the technology sector. My most recent position as a president of Microsoft Canada. In my career, I've seen the tremendous benefit that technology can provide. I've also seen the potential harm if technology is not implemented correctly. And I believe our current implementation of wireless technology is not safe. That's why I co-founded Canadians for Safe Technology and why I joined the business advisory group of the Environmental Health Trust. I am especially concerned about our current implementation of 5G wireless technology. And the more research I do and the more experts I talk to, the more concerned I become. Now, there's no doubt that there are benefits such as autonomous vehicle and faster download speeds. At the same time, I think there is potential harm. I think it's important that we understand that 5G is not just an incremental number on our cell phones. In fact, over 230 scientists and researchers from 41 countries around the world have formally written to the United Nations, their member nations, and the World Health Organization, expressing their concern over the planned rollout of 5G technology, especially for vulnerable populations such as children, pregnant women, and the environmentally sensitive. They have been joined by state legislatures and federal regulators who have asked the FCC to provide evidence that there is no harm from the rollout of 5G technology. There is no doubt that the engineers and businesses and companies that roll out technology are well-meaning. However, their focus is on being first to market and getting new products into the market as efficiently and quickly as they can. I am not aware of any research or studies by my industry or related industry that deal at all with the health or safety effects of wireless technology. Here are some important facts about 5G. 5G technology has not been tested. I am not aware of a single study that shows that 5G technology is safe. 5G, as in all other wireless technology, gives off radio frequency radiation, which is absorbed in the human body and accumulates in the human body. One segment of 5G technology are millimeter waves. Millimeter waves are used by the US and Israeli government in their active denial systems, which are used for crowd control. And what they do is they provide a very painful reaction in the skin organs of the body. We have no idea what the impacts will be to human health if that kind of millimeter wave technology is used and we are exposed to it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There are significant proven health effects from wireless technology and wireless devices. These include insomnia, headaches, fatigue, heart palpitations, all caused by exposure to wireless devices and the radiation from them. More serious symptoms and conditions include heart arrhythmia, infertility, tinnitus, numbness or tingling in the extremities, diabetes, cancer, and permanent DNA damage. Mental health is also impacted, with increased anxiety, depression, rises in ADHD and autism, mood swings, and emotional instability. In fact, all of these health factors and conditions have risen exponentially over the last 30 years, and hundreds of studies that show proof of biological harm from wireless devices. Most recently, in 2018, the National Institute of Health's National Toxicology Program released the findings of a 14-year, $25 million study that showed clear evidence of harm in terms of cancer and permanent DNA damage. This study, several months later, was verified by the prestigious Ramazzini Institute out of Italy, which found the same results. Now you may ask how a product that has this potential harm could ever be released to the market and to the public for public use. Well, the way the process works is the FCC regulates all wireless devices and products associated with them. Unfortunately, the FCC is made up of previous telecom executives, lawyers, and engineers. It does not have any scientists or doctors that you would expect to be involved with the regulation of potentially harmful products. In fact, the FCC guidelines are 20 years out of date without any major significant improvement. Countries such as China, Russia, Italy, and Switzerland have safety guidelines that are 100 times safer for their citizens. The FCC guidelines are based on small, short-term, infrequent exposure. They do not worry about the accumulated effects for multiple devices. They don't measure or monitor exposure 24 hours a day or 7 days a week. And they have no special consideration for children, pregnant women, or those who have shown environmentally sensitivities to wireless radiation. In addition to the concerns about the guidelines, there is actually no oversight provided by the FCC, and in fact the telecommunications industry is self-policing. So what we are left with is almost a Wild West scenario where the regulations and the guidelines are significantly lacking and the industry is left to its own accord to roll this technology out to the marketplace. In addition to the concerns about the FCC guidelines themselves, the Federal Telecommunications Act of 1996 prohibits any telecommunication company to be sued on the basis of the safety or health of their products. So in other words, there is no liability to the telecommunications industry of any of the impacts of their products. Just last week, the reinsurer Swiss Re came out with their annual forecast, and they specifically identified 5G technology as an upcoming insurable health concern globally over the next 3 years. There is also mounting evidence that the telecommunications industry knew about the potential impacts of RF radiation years ago. And in fact, we're starting to see some of the behavior from my industry similar to what the tobacco industry did over the last few decades. The telecommunications industry has over 500 lobbyists working in Congress and other areas of legislature protecting the industry. Together, all of these issues that I've referenced, plus the general lack of awareness in the general public, have led us to the situation where we are today. So where are we today? Today we currently have a significant amount of exposure in our homes, in our businesses, in our schools, and in most public areas we go to. Cisco has announced and predicted by 2030 there will be over 500 billion wirelessly connected devices in the world. That works out to be almost 60 devices for every person on the planet. Many states and cities around the world are debating and passing legislation about the rollout of 5G technology. And in fact, what we're seeing in the U.S. is at the federal and the state level, they're fast-tracking some of this legislation to support the rollout of 5G infrastructure. Unfortunately, this legislation seems to be taking away all individual rights and the rights of local towns and counties and cities and passing more power to the telecommunication companies. We believe this is a historic and precedent-setting power shift from the individual and state and local level over to an industry. In fact, many communities in the U.S. and around the world are passing moratoriums preventing the rollout of 5G technology until it is proven safe. 5G will impact you personally. There are designs that show the requirement for small cell 5G antennas as close as every third house in the neighborhood and could be as close as every 500 feet in public areas. The impact of that radiation at that level of frequency and intensity and power 24 hours a day and 7 days a week is unprecedented and is not understood. I've spent the last 5 years of my life, I've had the opportunity to meet with experts on a worldwide basis who have spent their careers studying the impact of wireless radiation and devices. I've also had the opportunity to meet with some of the great minds in the technology sector who have helped create these tremendous products that we use in our lives and provide tremendous benefit to us. I am convinced that there are safer alternatives available so we can have the best of both worlds. Technology that can provide the tremendous benefits, but technology that is safe. There is no incentive or motivation to provide the research and the funding to look for safer alternatives. So that's why it's up to us to help encourage that investment. That can be by asking our legislators to pass legislation, encouraging industry to do it, or it can be by us directly trying to advocate for change in the industry to allow them to become more responsible to provide safer technology that still provides tremendous benefit. We can't do this all on our own. We need your help. Here's what you can do. The most important thing is to get educated. We have provided a little bit of an overview and some of the scientific evidence that shows there's a potential harm. But now you have to take the initiative. There are some tremendous websites, Canadians for Safe Technology, the Environmental Health Trust, saferemr.com, and the Physicians for Safe Technology. There are also other resources that are listed at the end of this video. We encourage you to spread the word, share this information, share the video with your coworkers, with your family, with your friends, with legislators at the state and federal level. Even your local school boards can have an impact if they choose to engage. Ultimately, your knowledge is in your power, and your power is in your hands. I fundamentally believe we can have the best of both worlds. That is access to the technology and the tremendous benefits it provides, but in a safe manner. We are advocates for safe technology, not no technology. I thank you for your time.
Was that awesome or what?
Yeah. Wow. That is what everybody needs to hear. And it's the best response to a lot of the mainstream dismissal, that's going on. Like, for example, to the Australia story, which we can get to in a minute. But, I mean, there is, right from the horse's mouth, someone with 40 years in the technology sector, former president of Microsoft Canada, who has spent the last 5 years showing that we can have the best of both worlds and demonstrating that this is a grave health concern. So, when I read some of this stuff that is coming out now, like, for example, we heard of a report that there was a major telecom company in Australia that was taking a step to slow down or stop the rollout of 5G due to health concerns. All right, so all you got to do, I'm going to try to stop using the name Google as a verb. It's like, oh, just Google it and you'll find out. No, Ecosia. Use Ecosia.org would be my suggestion. That's a much better search engine, and they plant a tree for every search you do. So can't argue with that. So I just entered into Ecosia the search term Australia 5G health, right? So they brought up both sides. Ecosia is just, apparently a straightforward search engine. And they brought up health concerns, and then they brought up the mainstream media dismissal of the health concerns. So this is what we get from the Sydney Morning Herald in Australia as a response to the raising of health concerns around 5G. Do they report the science? Do they report both sides? Do they take a responsible journalistic stance like, you're supposed to be trained to do in journalism school where you're reporting news? No, here we go. The headline is, Russian propaganda very likely stoking 5G health fears in Australia, expert claims, right? So what you get up front is the magic words Russian propaganda stoking 5G health, and then the expert claims. So we get a lead paragraph that says, false claims that 5G telecommunications technology causes a host of serious illnesses are, quote, very likely being amplified by the Kremlin's media network and being repeated by Australians, according to new analysis. Yeah, those poor dumb Australians, all they can do is just mindlessly repeat Kremlin propaganda, right? So here's the gist of what they're saying. Russia's broadcaster, RT, formerly known as Russia Today, and other alternative media websites, in other words, beware of those because they're just more Russian propaganda outlets, folks. Any alternative media website, in other words, anything that's not CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, or us here at the Sydney Morning Herald, right? Alternative media, they're likely behind the uptick in 5G phobia in Australia, says Brett Schaefer. Okay, so who is Mr. Brett Schaefer? Let's find out. Oh, how does the Sydney Morning Herald characterize this guy? He is a disinformation and media fellow. Wow. How do you get to be a fellow? He's a disinformation and media fellow at the U.S.-based Alliance for Securing Democracy, a pro-democracy group funded by non-government sources. I mean, I have not had the time to do the research into follow the money question on just exactly who the Alliance for Securing Democracy is. But, red flag, folks, when you see a name like that, you need to double check and triple check and use your own discernment. Don't believe me or Nancy. Just use your own discernment and find out, okay, who's funding these people? What's the political perspective or corporate perspective or profit-driven motive of these folks? Well, Mr. Schaefer, disinformation fellow, tells us it's very likely that RT-promoted narratives are seeping into the Australian information environment via social channels. So then we get RT is a Kremlin-sponsored global media network that promotes an anti-Western worldview, sometimes with the help of disinformation. So right here, we go to the heart of the whole fake news, disinformation story. And, we'll provide a link to this because it's just so outrageous. I, invite you folks to check it out for yourselves. This article itself is such blatant propaganda, so completely lacking in any kind of journalistic objectivity that it's fairly mind-blowing, right? So they tell us this rise in 5G fears, including the notion that the technology causes cancer, comes as anti-5G activists increasingly gather in real life to dispute the science. To dispute the science. They don't say what science. They just, the god of science is being disputed by these, anti-5G activists. In July, Australians directed by a Facebook page gathered for a community forum exploring the hidden dangers of 5G radiation, according to a tech industry report. This comes a month after a small number of protesters took to the streets in Melbourne, Brisbane, and Hervey Bay to protest the rollout of 5G technology. Groups continue to organize. But then they go on to say, I won't read the whole article here, but they go on to say, where is it? The best science. Yeah, just letting us know about what the best science is telling us. A separate report by a London-based anti-disinformation group. Again, check that out. Anti-disinformation usually means we're here to counter the other group's propaganda with our propaganda by labeling it disinformation. Therefore, we are the Pure Truth Objectivity Anti-Disinformation Group, funded by sources to be named later. You check it out for yourself. So this anti-disinformation group in London charts the spectacular rise of social media accounts trafficking in paranoia for 5G technology. So right there, note the word choices. Trafficking as in drug trafficking or sex trafficking, right? Actually, it's simply information sharing, but never mind. And paranoia, they are using a pejorative mental health term to classify an entire group of citizens concerned about 5G technology as essentially mentally ill, all right? Which, according to the best science, is safe for the public. Now, they give you a hot link on according to the best science, right? And where does that take you? When you go to the best science? Well, surprise, surprise, we get another Sydney Morning Herald article. The science is clear. We've more to fear from baby monitors than from 5G. And, this guy gives them, I just love to turn our friend Mark from the UK loose on the BS that they're promoting as the best science. Never mind the hundreds and even thousands of scientists and health professionals around the world who are just pointing to irrefutable tons of evidence and studies that demonstrate the harmful effects of EMF, Wi-Fi, and especially 5G. Never mind, it's it's refuted by this guy here on the Sydney Morning Herald. This is what we're dealing with, and I just encourage everybody on whatever side of the political spectrum you might be on, left, right, red, blue, Republican, Democrat, green, socialist, whatever you are. I'm going to assume you care about your children. I'm going to assume you care about not having the biosphere collapse and insect collapse and bee colony collapse render the planet inhabitable for humans. I'm going to assume that you want to be able to pursue your dreams with some degree of freedom. I'm going to assume that across the board of the political spectrum, we are united by these common values and concerns for our family and the world we live in. So when it comes to disinformation, the right has disinformation. The left has disinformation. There's propaganda coming at us from all sides. Using your discernment, doing your own research, figuring out, okay, what feels true here? What matches up to other things that I know to be true? What does my common sense tell me? And ask yourself, above all, who benefits from this perspective? Follow the money. What kind of authentic objectivity is going on here? Is this an entrenched interest that is simply pushing its own agenda? I tell you, with the major mainstream media in the West, count on it. It's the telecommunication industries in bed with the FCC pushing 5G has faster downloads and will lead to, a paradise world. Check it out, folks. Follow the money. the New York Times board of directors is now primarily telecommunications heavy execs, right? You won't see a glimmer of a piece of information or article in the supposed newspaper of record for the Western world, the New York Times. That journalistic reputation is history, because the propaganda coming out of that once great newspaper is pretty pathetic these days. So just, left, right, red, blue, forget it, folks. Just do your own research and tune into the on-the-ground effects, harm that is happening as we speak. There's that organization called The Evidence Is Us. We are the evidence. It's already happening. This is not some tin hat conspiracy theory. This is happening. Children are being harmed. The environment is being harmed. The biosphere is collapsing. And we have a limited amount of time to do something about it. So that's the news from the propaganda world. What's your take on that, Nancy?
Why don't we talk about my take after a slight break here?
Welcome back, everyone. Radio 5G. This is Michael Henry Dunn with my co-host Nancy Hopkins. And we are deep into some fascinating territory, not only about 5G and the science demonstrating the harmful effects of it, but looking at the propaganda. Just sharing with you an article from the Sydney Morning Herald in Australia, which is stating as clear fact that the concerns about 5G's health impacts are stoked entirely by Russian propaganda. So, Nancy, you had some thoughts on that?
Well, I actually got taken back by the fact that whoever was the information authority there, and he made a statement that 5G is no more dangerous than a baby monitor.
Right.
And baby monitors are known by people in this business to put out one of the most powerful EM/Wi-Fi signals. It's a very dangerous signal. Do you remember when Dr. Green was with us, Deborah Green? And she was saying...
I do indeed, yeah.
That her next door neighbor she had a measurement, what do you call them, meters. She had the meters, and she's getting a really entirely unacceptable spike in EMF Wi-Fi from the next door neighbors, and she got permission to go in and find out what it was, and it was a baby monitor.
And how great it was. Sounds so innocuous. It's no more harmful than a baby monitor. Those sweet little baby monitors that allow you to take care of your baby.
Well, he was right. Yes, as a matter of fact, 5G is just as dangerous as the baby monitor. It's like, it's just, unbelievable. The disinformation. Okay, do you have the article where they actually talked about what that power company in Australia said? Because, it'd be nice to see what exactly is it that they said.
Right. Yeah, I do. I do have that here. Hang on a second. Let me pull that up for you. The article that I heard, and we reposted that here on 5G Free Crestone, which is our local activist group in Colorado, as well as on the Jai Gaia Sacred Activism Tour site, Facebook pages. And this was put out as a Stop 5G breakthrough by a group called We Are the Evidence, a wireless technology injured advocacy group. Australia leading wireless provider, TPG, stopped 5G deployment because of community health concerns. So here's the quote. TPG, which is Australia's leading wireless provider, announced it is stopping 5G. In court, its COO was asked, quote, if there was some segment of the community that held an irrational concern about the effects, end quote, of the small cells used in 5G network. And so this is their chief operating officer of TPG Australia's leading wireless provider, and he responds to this question. If there's some segment that has an irrational concern, he says, I wouldn't call it irrational. I think people have rational concerns. Not surprising, the media coverage of the announcement is very disturbing and full of the regular misinformation, that the fears are not scientifically based, and that the fears are driven by social media groups that spread misinformation. We are living in a world where lies have become truth, and truth a conspiracy. I hope to one day live in a world that makes sense again. This announcement is a big step in the right direction.
Can't argue with that. You know, the key to this was that he said, no, there are rational concerns. And this is, Australia is where Ray Broomhall has been doing his legal work. And where the concept of if you point a gun at me and say, well, it's not loaded, you have no proof that it's not loaded. I don't have any proof. So you now have actually been in a situation of assault on me, because even though I don't know, I know one way or the other if it's loaded, you're threatening me with a gun. And it's the perceived danger of it. I mean, that's why Ray has been able to stop, like not only stop, but take down different systems that were already in place. So from the standpoint of this telecommunications company, you can say, well, this guy is scaring them and it's going to cost them so much because they can't do it. He keeps winning them. You could say that. But the fact that the guy who's in charge, or the spokesman for this company, said it's not irrational. That was to me the most key point that was made. That I think that what's happening is that a lot of and this is what we banked on, is that the people who are in power within the system, within the structure, are becoming aware. And what did we start saying? Give them an excuse to do the right thing. And Ray has. He's proven to them.
Exactly. And I've shared here, just shared a link with you, Nancy, to the 5G Summit.com. And this is the great folks who have put together this amazing array of experts testifying on various aspects of the 5G crisis. And so this is from Ray Broomhall, who is the man in Australia who is leading this very effective strategy of addressing the criminal definition of assault, that the implementation of 5G meets the criminal definition of assault as it is held pretty much throughout the Western world, going back to common law. And there's a step-by-step legal process which Ray Broomhall has used, and it's defined here as the Achilles heel of the telecom industry, to take them immediately to court via criminal complaints. You don't go to the county commissioners, engage in a long, exhausting process where you end up getting, dismissed and tripped up by compromised civic officials, shall we say. This is you going to the cops and you're saying, I'm being assaulted and I want these people arrested. And there's a step-by-step legal process, and it's having a huge effect. Hundreds of small cell towers have been removed. A couple thousand more have been prevented. And this is just the reality. This is what is being done. It meets the criminal definition of assault because it is assault on your health, the health of your children, without your consent. So I've shared that link, and everybody can Ecosia. I'm going to use that word instead of Google. Use the search engine Ecosia, which is not censored in the way Google is, and just do a search on Raymond Broomhall, Broomhall, just like it sounds, Broomhall. And we're also providing a link to the 5G Summit.com, where there's so many great talks that are available. So, yeah, this is one of the most helpful things to me when I think about the greatest impact that we can have doing our part here at Radio 5G is the combination of a really effective 3D on-the-ground strategy addressing the implementation of 5G as criminal assault. Okay, that's the boots on the ground 3D. And then on the metaphysical level, as we were discussing earlier in the program today, it's about frequency. It's about raising your vibration. It's about things like the Grail Vortex Protocol, the Holy Grail Vortex Protocol, search engine Mary Hardy. That these are very powerful ways of working with the scientifically demonstrable energies of the grids of this planet, the grids of Gaia, the ley lines, using our own sovereign power as souls to connect from the heart of Gaia through to divine source in a way that creates a healing energy vortex that breaks through the control grid. And again, we're at power spots throughout the world over the last 15, 20 years, whenever our friends have peacefully, quietly implemented this Grail vortex, well, the black helicopters show up. They get buzzed by black helicopters, and black SUVs show up because that control grid is monitored by what we'll call the dark faction. And this rise in frequency that we have as a sovereign power as souls, this is the way we break through it in a peaceful, divine communion method. So Ray Broomhall and take him to the cops for assault, and meantime invoke the Grail Vortex. That's at the moment, this is what's got me most excited. And oh, by the way, while creating a Shungite environment in your home, because Shungite won't protect you against 5G, but EMF and Wi-Fi up to 4G, and becoming what Nancy calls a Shungite being. As an individual, if you're tuning into that quantum field, you will be carrying a powerfully protective energy with you. It's been scientifically demonstrated. So that's as far as I'm willing to go to say that that's what I'm going to recommend to everybody I know who cares about this fight is take them to the cops, the definition of assault on the 3D level, and on the higher metaphysical level, raise our own vibrations through some kind of meditative practice, some, repetition of love and joy, as Nancy was saying, and learning about things like the Holy Grail Vortex. Again, search term on Mary Hardy for some great videos which we shared a week or so ago. So yeah,
well, part of it too, Michael. Not to cut you off here, but when we look at even Ray's story, there is a network coming together that you think of it as coincidence or synchronicity. Okay, but I listened to a interview with him where the question was asked, how'd you get involved in this? And basically he's a lawyer. He's a barrister, which is a certain, I don't know what it means in Australian law. Well, I don't know what it means. But he's a lawyer. And he had some woman come in who was telling him about EMF poisoning, and she was, needed these. They had built a cell tower very close to her and stuff. And so he thinks it's like, well, she doesn't seem crazy, but she seems to be talking crazy. So he looked into it and he found out, oh no, she's not crazy. So he proceeds to start up a procedure to shut down this, to stop this, get the cell tower out of there. And he ran into a situation, I don't remember the details exactly, but basically it was, okay, we will stop everything. And they were, again, working on it. It hasn't been proven that it's safe. Okay, we're going to stop the cell tower building and all of this other stuff, but you're going to be responsible for money for every day that we're not working. You're going to be required to pay for it, for us to do this. That's how they stopped him, going that way. Because she was just a regular person like us. So then he goes back and he looks at it again. And he makes this connection to assault. And because he was trying to essentially go in a more civil court system than the criminal court system. But he realized he could short circuit everything because of the concept of precautionary, what do they call it? Precautionary, where you're being
they call it the precautionary principle.
Thank you. Yes,
you have to prove it's safe before you implement it.
Right. It was the precautionary principle plus the concept of assault that, I mean, virtually, within a month they had it stopped versus, years and years and years of them putting you off and going through that kind of thing. And once that happened, then other people came to him. And so now he's world famous because he's explaining how to do it to everybody else. So the fact is that he was the one this woman went to. It's like in the worst situation, you're all by yourself, you're getting cooked, and you find one lawyer that believes you and then finds the solution. The things that are happening, if you pay attention to the details, are pretty phenomenal. The fact that within this Australian telecommunications company, there were people who knew that the protesting and the people saying, you got to pay attention to us, they knew they were telling the truth. And then because they were so vocal, now they're in a position to have the excuse to say to the rest of the company, dudes, we can't go down this road. We've got to stop. So
right,
you feel divine or, just intent of our own thoughts. You feel something very powerful behind it, manipulating, getting the right people at the right time to be doing the right thing.
Exactly. And when it comes to liability, a telecom company can look at civil liability, they'll try to get us through the courts, but, we've got much more money than they do, huge legal budget. We can just fend them off. And, meanwhile, okay, they're sick. Well, maybe they'll die before they actually finish the delays that we can put into court. That's a common practice. But this way, where it's becoming widely known that this is criminal assault and the towers are being taken down because of the precautionary principle and because of health effects, that they look at that, that's just gotta have them, wetting their pants with anxiety, I would think. And maybe this is why they've apparently are stopping the rollout in Australia, because that kind of PR damage where, it's not about, there's some tin hat conspiracy group that's suing you in court, but the police have shut you down because you're committing assault. They don't want that, and again, this is about safe technology, finding, using safe alternatives that exist, fiber optic and others. This is not about, take away your smartphones and return us to the caves. No, this is, and then you get to the bigger agenda behind it. Is it just sort of an accident that this lovely, beautiful 5G system has these unfortunate health effects, which these good folks in the telecommunications industry just didn't happen to see because, of course, they're focused on the bottom line? Well, that would be one perspective to take, and to say it's just an accident that it's actually designed as a surveillance and weapons technology from decades ago. We've brought in folks who have, shared the explicit agenda of the intelligence community to use this for absolute blanket surveillance of every man, woman, and child in this country. And, they've got to keep stoking our fears of an enemy to make it okay. All right? To make us, okay, well, we're going to have a totally pervasive surveillance technology all around us, and we're going to be surrendering our freedoms one by one. But that's okay because the big bad boogeyman is going to get us if our good friends in the intelligence community aren't taking care of us. Take a look at that one on the historical level too, and how enemies are continually propped up or created where, if need be. And I love to just point to that lovely fairy tale, The Princess Bride, everybody's favorite movie to share with their kids. Check out what Prince Humperdinck is doing. Check out the false flag agenda that story is exposing. And there's a wonderful sequence where, his henchman is about to go down and torture Wesley in the dark underground chamber. And he says, would you like to come see me torture Wesley? And he says, oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm so busy. I have a wedding to prepare for, my wife to murder, and then the country of Gilder to blame for it. I'm swamped. That's what's really going on there. He's, going to blame the neighboring country because he needs to invade them. He'll murder his own wife and blame the neighboring country. This, the documented instances of this going back not just 50 years, not just 100 years. It's been used when a military establishment or an oppressive power structure decides they want a war, whether to divide their own population against each other or to take somebody else's natural resources, the use of a false flag scenario, we're being attacked by this big bad enemy, that's what's used. And that's what's used to justify our fears that make it okay to implement a blanket surveillance technology. And just to give you a concrete example of this is not just, imagination run riot. I was there in Taos, New Mexico at the county commissioner's hearing. And when this very powerful movement arose in Taos, 1,000 signatures, 300 people showing up to protest at the county commissioner's meeting, when the leaders of that group brought it to the attention of the city of Taos, they were told, oh, I'm sorry, look, we can't fight 5G because, you see, it's now being tied in to the 911 emergency response system. So, we don't want to get sued. We don't want the city of Taos to get sued if somebody calls 911 and we take out 5G. 5G tells us exactly where in your house you're located. And we don't want somebody to have a heart attack and die because they couldn't determine exactly where you were because of the 5G waves running through your house. It's like, okay, what does that tell you about what 5G just sort of accidentally provides pinpoint location of where you are at all times? And if you want to talk about lawsuits, folks, you have no idea of the lawsuits coming at various municipalities and the criminal actions under the definition of assault, which are already coming at you. So when, the local telecom company tells you, oh, we've got this all worked into the 911 information system, emergency response, and we can tell you exactly where you are in your home. And we can also tell you exactly what was said by anybody in your family, over the previous 24 hours. That's what it's really about. And General Petraeus unabashedly celebrated that aspect of the 5G rollout as being a surveillance windfall for the intelligence community. So this is not just us making this stuff up, folks. Anyway, so many perspectives to track on.
Oh, I'd love to see that quote. I hadn't heard that. Petraeus said that?
From Petraeus?
Yeah.
That was brought out actually on one of our shows. I'll look it up and share it with you. But the 5G surveillance dragnet. I'm forgetting which of our guests was the
Mark, I think.
authority on that.
Mark.
Yeah, it might have been Mark Steele, but I think actually it was one of our other guests. And it is, if you do a search on 5G surveillance dragnet, it'll bring up about a 25-minute documentary video that goes into the depth of the evidence of 5G as a surveillance network, and that is one of its primary purposes, and that this is explicitly acknowledged by major intelligence community figures such as David Petraeus. It is, they're counting on the New York Times not to run a headline on the fact that faster downloads, you can get movies downloaded in only 12 seconds while waiting at the airport gate, is in fact just a way to monitor and control every man, woman, and child in America. So it's all there, folks. We're not making this stuff up.
No, we're not that clever.
Yeah, gosh, I wish I could make up a Hollywood screenplay like this. Ay, truth and fiction. Truth is always 10 times wackier than what any writer can make up.
Okay, now we did have that other article about what the municipalities can do. Do you happen to have that one up?
I don't. Folks, we're both responding to news coming in from our friends about some health issues, and so we can bring that up fairly quickly. I'm hoping.
I'm looking for it now.
Yeah, because you can tell from the tone of my voice that I am frantically search terming as I speak here. So this is 5G municipalities.
I've got it.
Oh, wow. The fastest searcher in the West, or in the deep South.
I had put it maybe. I had sent it to you.
Okay. Can you send me the...
well, I would, except for some reason... Wait a minute. It's not opening. Wow. Are you kidding me? This isn't opening. Go to your...
did they take down the link?
Go to your Facebook and see. It's on takebackyourpower.net. So maybe if I just go there.
That was going to be my suggestion, because they are one of the best out there. Is takebackyourpower.net, and they are really all about the municipal action that can be taken. Empowering municipalities to meet the 5G land grab challenge. Is that the one, Nancy?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to drop that link into our Skype chat here so we can share it with our folks. Yeah.
So you got it opened?
Yeah, it says many municipalities are capitulating in negotiations with wireless companies when they're threatened or sued for wishing to protect their citizens from the harms of 5G EMF irradiation. Mayors and city councils across this country are convinced they do not have a right to say no to the dense cell towers and antennas being erected in public rights-of-way. What if, in fact, they have viable options? How can municipalities in the U.S. negotiate more effectively and level the playing field, taking optimal advantage of federal and state law? So a favorite tactic now being deployed by the FCC and industry promoters of 5G is to attack the mind by establishing false and invalid assumptions. This tactic engenders fear, desperation, despair, resignation, and most tragically, loss of hope. It is designed to squander municipalities' time and preciously scarce funds and to sap vital and creative energy. The antidote for mayors, city councils, and citizens is to cultivate integrity and resilience and bring the power, wisdom, and intelligence of heart and mind effectively together. And the negotiation turns on three controlling assumptions. Number one, the wireless industry and the FCC have a monopoly of legal authority based on the Telecommunications Act of 1996 and reinforced by some state legislatures. Two, the wireless current environment of 3G to 4G as well as the emergent 5G is safe. And number three, mayors and council members are free from their own legal liability for acceding to the demands of the wireless companies and the FCC. So basically they're saying, hey, the Act of 1996, that just took all the authority away. It's all the FCC and the wireless industry. Sorry, folks. We wish we could help you here in our town as your mayor, but we can't. And besides, it's all safe, right? Not to worry. And we're free from liability because we're just acceding to the law. So this article from takebackyourpower.net, and that is empowering municipalities to meet the 5G land grab, and we're going to provide that link to you. They're just saying, okay, all three of these assumptions are highly questionable.
Well, we've got not too much to talk about. Go through the assumptions because it gives a lot of information. Because those are the 3 points that they come. Let's, if you don't mind.
Right. You want me to read the assumptions?
Yeah. Let's go through it.
Sure. Okay. All right. So I just laid out what those three assumptions are. Right. That the FCC has the Act of 1996 they have the legal authority and, hey, we can't do anything. Your local municipality can't do anything. Assumption number one, right? That's wrong. Let's tackle that one. The response on takebackyourpower.net is they say there is a reasonable chance that the authorizing provisions of the 1996 Telecommunications Act and the overreaching FCC rules implementing them will be held unconstitutional in violation of home rule, separation of powers, due process, and uncompensated taking under the First, Fifth, and 14th Amendments to the Constitution. The U.S. Supreme Court has already recognized the principle of, quote, cooperative federalism, end quote, which will counterbalance the FCC's aggressive use of the preemption doctrine. The California Supreme Court in T-Mobile versus City and County in San Francisco has also confirmed the fundamental right of local municipalities to protect the health and safety of their citizens. On August 9th of 2019, so that's a little more than a month ago, the D.C. Circuit ruled that the FCC 5G program must conform with the basic provisions of the National Environmental Policy Act, and there are various federal laws protecting the public from false and misleading advertising, such as touting the benefits of 5G without warning of its attendant harms. So right there, the assumption that your local municipality can say, hey, I'm sorry, our hands are tied. There's this 1996 act and, we can't protect our people. Wrong. That is just plainly not the case. Assumption number two, the current wireless environment.
Before we go any further, I just want to clarify that. What this means is that there's been at least two precedent setting in the legal foundation of, no, you can't do this. This is very critical because this will get to the Supreme Court probably quickly because of the impact that it is happening, all over the place. What that means is that the Supreme Court now has to look at what the lower court decisions were, theoretically. And if they're not bought off, then they can declare the 96 rule to be unconstitutional. So this is a very critical situation. But at the local level, you've got to make these people aware of the fact that, the law you're trying to cite is now is under attack as being unconstitutional. And you're basing your decision now on a law that's going to be overturned very shortly. Where is that going to leave you legally?
Right. Yeah, you thought you were protected from liability, and surprise, surprise, you are not. Big time. So, and, piercing the corporate veil, piercing the municipal veil, holding people personally accountable for exposing their town, their neighbors' families and children to a horrifying list of documented harmful health effects. You are not protected. So there goes that assumption.
Yeah, please make note of this. Take the information, the details down. Okay, we'll give you the link to this article, but take that down because when you're talking to, and I'm thinking of you going to your local person, the person that your friend might know or you might know, and say, look, dude, there's a process underway right now to make that unconstitutional. This is, so that you can give them the excuses to do the right thing. But these facts, that's why I'm focusing on it. The things that have already happened in a very short period of time. Focus on them. And because honestly, they're not going to get it from any place else than probably this website or similar websites. It's not going to be in their local paper. They are not going to get a newsletter from the telecommunications company saying, oh, by the way, they might overturn 96. No, that's not going to happen. Clegg was talking about, President Clegg, he was talking about the fact that you have to be aware, you have to get educated, but you also have to educate those very people that can make the difference.
Exactly. Shall we go on to assumption number two?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. So assumption number two is that the current wireless environment, 3G and 4G, as well as the emergent 5G, is safe. So this, again, is the response from takebackyourpower.net and their article empowering municipalities to meet the 5G land grab. There is significant scientific evidence that EMFs associated with 3G and 4G wireless technologies are closely linked with cancer, damage to mitochondria and DNA, neurodegenerative illnesses, and cardiac disease, with significant data also on hazards to children, pregnant women, elderly persons, and people with special sensitivities and disabilities. In 2018, a national toxicology report on cancer recognized that EMFs are the cause of malignant schwannomas in rats. Less well appreciated is the fact that 5G implementation is a form of government and industry-enforced national addiction to faster and faster internet speeds that may encourage opioid addiction, mental disease, and violence, all associated with sympathetic overdrive of the autonomic nervous system for large segments of the population. So if those scientifically documented facts about the linkage of EMFs with just 3G and 4G, let alone 5G, are so closely linked with cancer, genetic damage, neurodegenerative illnesses, cardiac disease, harm to children and pregnant women, and that's not enough, folks, well, then I don't know what planet you're from or what race you belong to, but it's enough for us. And so forget about the assumption that this is safe. If you're getting propaganda as a municipal official trying to serve your community, telling you, oh, okay, well, it's all absolutely mandated by the 96 law. And oh, by the way, it's all totally safe, not to worry. Wrong on both counts. And then there's assumption number 3. Do you have any comment on that last part there, Nancy?
No, I think it's blatantly clear. There are thousands of pages of documents of research that's been peer-reviewed stating the fact that EMF Wi-Fi is dangerous to all living things, period. On the other side, there has been no published study that will tell you the opposite. And the technology people themselves are admitting to it. This is not a bone of contention anymore. They have no proof it's safe. There is a tremendous amount of proof there isn't. So, assumption number 3.
Right. So, again, this is what your local municipality, your local officials, most of them good folks, glad to serve their communities. They're being told, okay, not only does the 96 law, mean you don't have any power, and not only is 5G safe, but assumption number 3, you mayors and you council members, you are free from your own legal liability for acceding to the demands of the wireless companies and the FCC. And Australian barrister, here's the analysis on that assumption. Australian barrister Raymond Broomhall has implemented a powerful protocol based on the precautionary principle with great success. Approximately 2,500 4G and 5G cell sites have been halted in Australia. So we believe, says Take Back Your Power, this same protocol has a good chance of being adopted and applied in the U.S. if similar effective alliances can be forged between citizens, attending physicians, and attorneys, as is currently happening in Australia. Under Barrister Broomhall's precautionary rule, which we're calling here the principle of heightened vigilance, and basic tort principles of foreseeability and duty of care, they predict that mayors and city councils in the U.S. may face civil and even criminal liabilities for assault and related illegal activities. Mr. Broomhall's protocol is elegantly straightforward, and they give an A, B, and C here. A, document, organize, measure, collate, and publish all data on EMF exposures and harms. B, secure an advisory letter from an attending physician confirming the patient's own concerns and wishes not to be irradiated from a medical perspective, establishing a physician-patient confidentiality relationship. And C, present a well-reasoned and documented letter of objection and warning from a licensed attorney, creating a record that the patient refuses to consent to be irradiated, deeming a dismissal or ignoring of such objection and warning to be confirmation of an intent to assault. It's like, You've been warned, hey, you're pointing that gun at me, and I really don't like it, and I'm really asking you not to. So that's ignored. That constitutes an intent to assault. Similar to Australian law, the California Penal Code explicitly imposes strict criminal liabilities on those who assault children and elderly citizens and people with special disabilities. Guess what? That's you, folks. That's you, telecom officials. That's you, local municipality people who ignore these health concerns. That's you. Strict criminal liabilities for assaulting children and the elderly and people with disabilities. So as 5G towers are planned on public spaces, municipal authorities and those immediately responsible will become primary actors, enablers, and accessories of the foreseeable harms alleged. And those are just legal terms, folks. That's just criminal liability. So practical actions, they go on in this article from takebackyourpower.net to say that, mayors and city council members, and we're not making you folks out to be crooks. You're good people trying to protect your communities, and you're being told you've got no liability. You're being told you've got no choice because the 96 Act took away your power. You're being told that it's safe. Wrong on all three counts. There are significant legal pushback from Supreme Courts, such as California, and there is overwhelming evidence of harm, and guess what? You can be and will be held personally and criminally liable for that harm. So instead, you can ask, how can I protect the citizens of my community? That's what you're there for, right? What do I really want? If the answer is to say no to the 5G rollout, then the following actions should be considered under the principle of heightened vigilance outlined above. And they list these. I'll just go through them quickly. Immediately launch a massive 5G public education program. And they're going to provide a sample kit here on takebackyourpower.net from the 5G Summit website, which we mentioned earlier, the 5G Crisis Summit. Point 2, actions you can take. Initiate monitoring of EMF radiation and equip citizens and local organizations with proper EMF monitoring devices. Instruct hospitals and healthcare providers to monitor, assess, and report on adverse health and environmental effects of 5G installations. Issue abatement orders, recognizing uncontrolled EMFs above a safe irradiation standard as a public nuisance. Establish advisory guidelines based on this standard for school, classrooms, hospitals, and workplaces. Document evidence of assaults and other illegal acts and collaborate with local prosecutors and state legislators. Hold town meetings where all stakeholders, including representatives of the wireless industry, are welcome to present their case and openly debate the options. Call for a referendum and invite the community to vote on whether it wants 5G and, if so, under what terms and conditions. Collaborate with thousands of other communities across the United States and abroad that are sharing data, scientific, technological, and legal expertise and other assets, including financial resources. And, oh, by the way, we stress this as often as we can, this is not about losing the benefits of technology. This is about viable, safe alternatives. And they go on to say here in the TakeBackYourPower.net article, there's a viable and safer alternative to a ubiquitous wireless juggernaut. It is a predominantly wired fiber optic infrastructure which was nationally funded over a decade ago. A wired internet has significant advantages over wireless in that it's more reliable, more secure from hacking, more energy efficient, faster, and essentially radiation free. It's been shown communities implementing a wired fiber alternative not only realize a positive return on investment, but they will also have a strategic economic advantage over wireless. Safe G communities will attract superior companies that are concerned with the health of their employees and the environment. And I'm picturing, hey, I'm looking to move to another town. I've got some options in terms of where I work. Oh, you are a Safe G wired community? You've got fiber optic implemented. I can have faster, safer internet and not worry about cancer, diabetes, miscarriage, neurodegenerative disease. Great. Okay. I'm on with you folks. And guess whose property values are going to go up and whose property values are going to go down. So wireless can play an important role of these communities as well. But at least the implementation of the wireless option can proceed with care, balance, and compassion. That's right, compassion, folks, with the health and well-being of local communities as a top priority. So we just want to give kudos to the folks at takebackyourpower.net. It is such a great resource for doing exactly that. Standing up as citizens with constitutional rights and encouraging our municipal officials to stand up for their duty. And the reason that most likely as good folks, they have taken those positions to protect the community. You do still have the power, and you do still have the information about the scientifically demonstrated harm of 5G, and you have the vulnerability, the personal liability, and potentially criminal liability and vulnerability. So, if you need that as an additional motivation to help take care of your community, well, there it is. So, this is a great piece of information to share. I'm really glad you brought this up, Nancy.
Well, the thing we have to, again, reiterate is that you have got to do this at your local level. And if you have to do it city by city, then do it city by city. It's a system. You can prevent it from going into your location. If that's what everybody does, then that's going to work. So just be aware of the fact that, you have to become active. Now, you can become active in your mind if that's the only thing you have, in that you don't have the time or resources to be able to actually participate. But you can do it in your mind by thinking of, love and joy, but also of the awakening of the telecommunications people to what they're doing. It's like, boys and girls, you're being very stupid here. Can you please wake up? You're sleepwalking. And so you can do that as an individual, but you have to become engaged. For those people who can throw away every excuse you might have not to do it, then go for the local people, the people that you can actually eyeball. And if you don't know any local people as far as in the government to do that, then talk to anybody around you. There's so much data. They can't argue the point. If you say basically what was presented with Clegg, telling us, this is what 5G does, and these are the scientists, just like he did. Now, when I come on and I say things like that, I don't have the credentials this man does, but he summarized it absolutely succinctly and in a very good way. If you tell these, your husband, hey, dude, listen, this is what's happening here. Get it down so it's real short, and then they say, oh, that's bullshit, and then you say to them, prove it. Put it back on them to prove their case that what you're saying is bullshit. Make them think. And then just walk away from it, because all you're going to do is end up in an argument, because they're going to go into the defensive mode and you got to prove it, America. No, just throw that out there and then walk away.
Yeah, those simple words, prove it, are that's the unignorable response that just leaves a lot of them speechless, because they're relying in many cases, this is true, a lot of the propaganda, on ad hominem attack, which means, on the person. They're not countering the evidence. They're not bringing, valid science based on, appropriate methodology of studies across years, which have amply proven the dangers of 5G. They're relying on attacking the person, saying, oh, this is paranoia, like that Sydney Morning Herald article said. These are paranoid people under the influence of alternative websites, which are actually following a Kremlin agenda. It's Russian propaganda, folks. This is, the kind of personal attacks that they use to sidestep the science. And the science is irrefutable and is overwhelming. So, and as Nancy says, you can get into an argument about it, and then, you're making an enemy as opposed to just inviting somebody to do the responsible thing, do your own research, look at these many studies, and then come back to me with, prove it. This is what the precautionary principle is about. There is a perceived possibility of danger. So before we roll this out, as a precautionary principle in taking care of our citizens' health, you are required to prove that it's safe. Real simple.
Maybe we should make a business card up with just the URLs of these various alternative websites, because you can say to somebody, do your own research, but if they go to Google, they're going to be led down another rabbit hole, and not the one you want to be in. This is a rabbit hole where there is no back door. Just keep it controlled.
And there's, the censorship curtain, the iron curtain of censorship that is being rolled out, like step by step, more and more repressive filters are being put in place in Google and Facebook to prevent, they say, we're just preventing our people from being exposed to Russian propaganda. Right. As defined by you, which means propaganda defending the interests of the telecommunications industry. So, that it's quickly becoming Orwellian, as we used to say before 1984, where this really is the thought police. We're dealing with thought police. And there are search engines such as ecosia.org, E-C-O-S like Sam, I-A, ecosia.org, which from all reports is largely censorship free, which will actually just follow the information, give you, both sides. And that is not true anymore of Google and Facebook, which, let's remember, they are not public utilities. They are, public corporations there to please their stockholders and their board of directors and their bottom line. And they are controlled by the usual suspects of the corrupt elite.
Just to make sure that people understand how they're doing this, what happens is that when you ask a question, they give you the people that they want you listening to. Right now, if you put in, I don't know, any kind of alternative question, you're not going to see Dr. Mercola's website come up. Now, when you used to do it, Mercola would be like the number one because he had the biggest website on the planet as regarding alternative medicine. He'd been at it for at least 15 years that I was following him. So they make certain things disappear. And that's what we're talking about, is that they are changing your mind based on what information they're willing to give you. So, and it's getting worse. I mean, you can't find websites that exist, but you go, what was the name of that website, and you put in a search engine that should bring it up, but it doesn't. Well, that's what's happening out there.
Yeah, that's why we should use DuckDuckGo. We should use ecosia.org. We should, and I'm as guilty of it as anybody in terms of my Facebook feed. It's a system that is now very specifically designed to shape opinions that serve the agenda of the high-level factions that control that company. So, you end up preaching to the choir. You end up hanging out with your own folks and hearing your own version of fake news that you believe is real, while talking about the opponents and how they are suckers for what you call their fake news. And meantime, you're both being totally suckered by disinformation. And so it's up to us, to use our own discernment. There's disinformation on both right and left, and we just have to use our own determination to find reliable sources and figure out what's real. Use our common sense. So we're coming up on our last couple of minutes here, Nancy. I just want to reach out with prayer energy to our friends who are experiencing some setbacks, and remember that we can turn to a huge network of allies and friends, both on the 3D level and in the higher levels, that we're all working together. And there is not only hope, in my view, and Nancy said this also, there is really the certainty of victory. And when we say victory, we mean victory for our planet, for the human family, and for the common values and goals we hold, which is simply to have a freer and more abundant world for our children, and to live in peace and cooperation with other countries. Yes, while, of course, defending ourselves and upholding the rule of law where necessary. So anyway, thank you so much to the people at TakeBackYourPower.net for the wonderful work they're doing. We encourage you all to, go to these links, go to these websites, use Mr. Broomhall's protocols for criminal assault as a defense against 5G, and also, check out the metaphysical tools that we're using as well to help create a greater sense of spiritual family, and using our inherent power as souls to move into the beautiful life that is our birthright as children of the God Source. So anything you'd like to take us out with, Nancy, before we hit the beautiful music?
Just love, enjoy, be safe, be blessed. We'll see you next time.
Amen. Thanks, everybody.